Hi, everyone. This is Mitch Tanenbaum. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I'm going to talk about the security news update for the week ending January 16th. For those of you who are watching on video, you can see the security news updates are available. The printed version of it is available at cybersecurity-mitch-tanenbaum-blog.com/SNU for security news updates. So if you're looking for the links to the details of the articles, that's where you can find them. And with that, let's move on to what we're talking about. So first item is, it's interesting, the one of the kind of alt tech or responses to the Silicon Valley challenges is a website called Getter, and a social media site. And it was just revealed this week that they are using trackers from Facebook and Google just like everybody else. So, even though they claim that they're privacy focused and they don't filter content, which they may well not do, they're still tracking you just like everybody else. One of the interesting things about browsers, which I wasn't aware of until this week, is that they have the ability to go talk to other things on your network, like internal servers and such. And as a result of that, it's kind of a security vulnerability. There's a W3 standard that has recently come out called private network access, and it defaults, or it will default once it's implemented, to off. Chrome released pieces of it in version 96 last year, but Chrome 98 and Chrome 101 will add more full support for that. I'm assuming the other Chromium-based browsers will do the same thing, although I don't know that, and I don't know what the defaults will be. But if that's a concern for you one way or the other, either you're using the browser to get to internal network resources, or you don't want the browser to be able to get to internal network resources. Private network access is the W3 standard that addresses that issue. There is a new bug, again, one more time, third-party code. It's used by folks like Netgear and D-Link and Western Digital. And the bug is in the library that allows you to kind of extend your USB device to the virtual device that you're talking to, like a router or a firewall. And the result of a bug would allow other people either to generate a denial of service attack against that device or a remote exploit. Now, here's the challenge. K-Codes, that makes that library for folks like Netgear, has released a patch for the software, but that doesn't mean that the router vendors are going to go integrate that. And it certainly doesn't mean they're going to integrate it into older routers. But more importantly, it doesn't mean that most people are going to go patch it. So now we have an exploit to either kill a device or to take over the device, and it'll probably never be patched for the most part. Avanti is amongst a whole bunch of vendors that are releasing Log4j security advisories. They make things like Avalanche File Director, Mobile Iron Core, Pulse Secure, and other products. And they list all the products, which ones are affected and which ones are not. You're going to see lots of these, and you really need to look at them and see whether any of the products that you use are on the list, because I had never heard of Avante. And they make things like Pulse Secure and Mobile Iron, so that really seems like you're gonna have to look at these things with care to try to understand what products might be affected or what products are not affected. Moving on to the law, the New York State Department of Financial Services, for those of you who are regulated by DFS, there's a new law that went into effect on January 1st that requires consumer disclosures for commercial financing transactions for 2.5 million or less. That law went into effect in January 1st, but they didn't get the regs out on time. So they said that they're not going to enforce it until the regs are finalized, which will probably happen in a couple months. So if you do commercial lending and are licensed in New York, then this is something you need to look at. These are going to require, this law is going to require consumer-like disclosures for commercial financing, which has never been the case. Moving on to privacy, Apple has implemented a kind of a sort of an interesting proxy service for Apple users. And it's actually a pair of proxy services. one that reaches from your computer or your phone to Apple, and another that reaches from Apple to a one of many proxy services. The idea being that no one site is going to know both your IP address and the content that you are looking at. So it's a kind of a lightweight VPN, if you will. But the ISPs in Europe are hopping mad, and actually T-Mobile in the United States as well, because basically they can't snoop on your traffic anymore, and they can't sell their ads as for as much money because now they're not personalized. And they say that it's going to impact their ability to efficiently manage their networks, which is total crap. If they want to be honest about it and say, gee, we sell your data, we make a lot of money doing that, and you're getting in our way, then that would be one thing. But to say that it's going to negatively impact their ability to manage their networks is just total crap. The reality is there is actually one situation where it's possible that it can impact things, and that is where you have parental controls in place and you're asking your ISP, God knows why you do that, to go implement parental controls, probably because you're just not a techie, would be my guess. And obviously if they can't see your traffic, they can't do parental controls. Some of the ISPs have banned the option, just disabled it. And some folks are complaining to the regulators that they want to use the option and they can't. So, stay tuned for how that falls out. No clue how that's going to turn out. And on the education front, I got a new article from The Hill on why software bill of materials is important for businesses, not just from a security standpoint, but why it's important for businesses, in part because if you don't know what's inside your software, how the hell do you maintain it? And how do you know when there's something you need to patch, like Log4j, for example, as everybody is wrestling with these days? And, if we had good software bill of materials, then we'd probably know a lot better where Log4j is and where it's not. In the news about breaches this week, probably heard that the Ukrainian government got hacked, likely by Russia, but no one is attributing it yet. And they put messages on these various government websites that say that people should be afraid and that you expect worse. It's your past, your present, and your future. Obviously, trying to scare people. So we shall see where that goes. But many of the websites have been restored, and I'm sure we'll figure out who is to blame for doing this, but likely it's Russia. In Thailand, a hospital exposed 39 million patient records, and those patient records are for sale on the dark web. They are useful for all different kinds of fraud, and that's a big leak, 39 million records. In California, the city of Grass Valley had a breach, and of course they lost all of their employees' social security numbers, their vendors' information, anybody that the police department knew about, also breached driver's license, health insurance, bank account, everything that they would have for a employee, or in the case of a vendor, anything they have for a vendor. So, and it also includes information on dependents, people who are not even employees. So, not a great situation. In the side effects department, the city of Albuquerque, which is part of the county that they're in, the county's IT systems were hit by a ransomware attack. And the net effect of that is the jail keepers had no access to their cameras, their incident reports, or their automatic doors. They had to go into lockdown as the techs tried to figure out how to get access back. And that lockdown may, in fact, put the jail in violation of a consent decree that says different things about how they're going to treat prisoners. They filed an emergency notice with the court explaining that this is kind of out of their control. Whether the courts agree that shoddy security practices are out of their control or not, we'll see. It's different than a fire or something like that. But right now, no visitors and everybody's in lockdown, and not clear how long that's going to last. In the small town of Neenah, Wisconsin, all schools are closed because of a ransomware attack. Nowadays schools operate on the internet, and if there is no internet, the schools can't operate literally. They can't get to things like lesson plans. And as a result of that, even the phones aren't even working. As a result of that, the schools are closed and will be closed until it's fixed. But before students get too excited about that, the school said, oh, by the way, we're going to extend the school year at the end to make up for this. And then in Albuquerque, same problem, hopefully different attacker, likely different attacker. But, they also got hit by a cyber attack. They also lost access to their internet services. So they closed their school last Thursday, and then last Friday, and then Monday is a holiday. So they're, hoping that we're going to be able to open the schools on Tuesday. We shall see. In the what's the latest supply chain risk department, your desk phone is the one, because nowadays phones are many cases voice over IP phones, and your computer is daisy chained through it. Turns out at least one very popular brand of phone is made in China, and there's code in there that talks back to China on a regular basis, multiple times a day, and they can see every site that you visit, and we don't really know exactly what it is they're sending back to China, but maybe Chinese brand or Chinese manufactured desk phones may not be the most secure thing to do, especially if you're daisy chaining your computer through it. In the layers of effective endpoint security, as the castle and moat are now gone, that's the office, right, with firewalls and company networks and stuff. You need a better plan to go protect your end users, your endpoints. And here's a good article that I have a link to in the notes that that will give you some ideas of what you can do. Now, obviously, this was written by a vendor, so it is slightly slanted, but it's, for the most part, it's useful information. In the scary cyber attack department, a researcher has demonstrated literally how to use a cyber bug to melt the power lines. In their case, they were using New York City as a great example, but it's nothing about New York that's special here. What they discovered was that some brands of electrical overload limiting switches had a bug in it that allowed them to take over the switch and allowed them to not only disable the feature of overloading of shutting down the network when it got overloaded, but also overload the network. And when they did that, the wires just got hot and melted. The challenge, of course, is that if you melt everybody's power lines, it will take a long time to get the power back on. This is not a, gee, we'll reset the circuit breaker and turn the power back on. This is like getting guys with trucks and spools of wire, running down the streets to rerun wires into neighborhoods, depending on how big it is. This is a major challenge. The good news is that the vendor, which is I think Schneider Electric, if I remember right, is going to fix the bug. But how many more controllers like this, Internet of Things devices like this, have bugs in them that people will find and maybe not report them, maybe not demonstrate the smell of burning wire so powerfully. And in the news Bytes department, old tricks never die. They just keep going on. The hackers have resorted to sending malware-filled USB sticks in the mail and via UPS to people, sometimes with a convincing letter, sometimes with a convincing email. This is about as old as it comes, but it's still effective. People still plug in the USB stick and poof, now their computer is infected with malware. Norton has figured out a new revenue stream for themselves. They are installing crypto mining software on users' computers. It is on by default. So they get 15% of whatever crypto mining dollars are made there. You get the rest. So if you want to be a crypto miner, that's a good thing. If you don't want to be a crypto miner, you might want to turn that off. In light of all of the recent open source security vulnerabilities like Log4j, for example, the White House hosted last week a cybersecurity summit. Ann Neuberger, who is very well known and very well respected, former NSA manager, executive, hosted it. She's now in the White House on the cybersecurity team, and we shall see what comes out of it. Hopefully something good. The challenge is there's so many millions of pieces of open source software. It's very, very difficult to get our arms around this, but ultimately it boils down to you as a customer. If you are using open source software, you have to decide, how much risk you're willing to tolerate and what you need to do to go mitigate that risk to the level that's okay with you. In the Department of Karma is you know what, Canon installed DRM chips inside of their printer cartridges to stop people from buying inexpensive third-party toner and ink, because they make most of their money selling the toner and ink. Well, now they can't get chips, so they are making their toner and ink chips, cartridges rather, without chips, which is generating a message when you plug this so-called Canon branded chip or toner cartridge into your computer, into your printer. Geez, I'm not doing good here. That you get an error message that says, hey, this is not authentic. It's not going to work right. So they've had to resort to printing out, or not printing out, but providing messages on how to get around their DRM, which most people probably already know. But it's somewhat embarrassing that they kind of got hoisted by their own petard by virtue of the fact that they're trying to stop their competitors. The good news is that Canon says that once chips become more plentiful, they will put them back in their toner cartridges again to try to hurt their competitors. And finally, in Massachusetts, there was a right to repair law that was passed last year. The car makers are not at all happy with that, because again, forcing you to go to your mechanic instead of fixing the car yourself, or going to a third-party mechanic instead of going to a dealer, has a big revenue impact on them. So they're filing a suit saying this is unconstitutional. And oh yeah, by the way, it says that one of the things that people want out of this is the data that comes from your car. It seems like a very reasonable thing. It's your car, should be your data, but the manufacturer says, no, it's our data. And their reason, they say, for not allowing you to have access to your own data from your car is that doing that will embolden sexual predators. Don't ask me how they come up with that one, but it kind of goes back to, we can't have encryption. We have to protect the children, which is, yeah, we have to protect the children. That's certainly true, but that's not the reason why they don't want to go off and let you encrypt things, or don't want you to have access to your data. That's just total bull. So that's all we have until next week. We'll be back. If you have suggestions for us, please let us know. Questions, obviously, please reach out to us. Otherwise, thank you. And until next time, have a good week.